Good rising. I hope y'all are well. I hope y'all are flourishing. I hope y'all are manifesting. I hope the blessings are on abundance, especially during this time where a lot of man made things are shut down and there's this eagerness to turn to nature and within into the things that are natural. Even as much of a challenge it is, it will reap so many benefits in the future, as cliche as it may sound. So I want to do this video and focus on submissive women and obedient women, a term that my generation, the generation before, and probably the generation going forward, with the help of a lot of feminists and other groups, have deemed just like a cliche or something negative. I was watching this video about a pastor, and in terms of the Bible, I think the Bible has a lot of gems in it when it's taught the right way. So I will not allow anyone to just break down the Bible to me or teach me from the Bible. So the way that he broke down this specific story about Adam and Eve, the way that he broke it down was basically saying that Eve was not made for Adam or revealed to Adam until he went through this cycle of creation and individualism. So, he started out with dust. And so he was just a form at one point, right? And then God tapped into his consciousness. And that's when he became a man, and his wife was revealed to him. And so, he did a beautiful job of tying it into men on an everyday basis, right? So you have men who went through the muck and mire, and I think it's such a beautiful time for women to start realizing how powerful we are in terms of our men getting back on their rightful position in society, with the thought of the creator, right? So where the creator has destined for him to be. And I know that a lot of our men are broken down because of our history, the images we've shown about ourselves, their trauma. We just gotta love on them, right? And part of loving on them is not allowing them to just stay in a form of a man, but really tapping into that consciousness where he has direct connection with the creator, or God, whatever you want to reference to. So where he has direct connection to that source to be able to guide appropriately, right? To guide with the foundation, because a form of a man could be guided by anything. It could be guided by drugs, alcohol, money, women, desires, lust. So when we allow a man to just stay in that form and we give him everything, it doesn't challenge him to be better. And I've seen it. I've seen where I've been in relationships and I fell in love with the form of the man, right? So just the outside of the man and what he represented. And he necessarily didn't have the content, right? Or he didn't have the interior. But I was in my head, I was like, I'm willing to go through this with him in order to get to that point. Not realizing, like Adam, like the way he described Adam, that was an individual journey, right? And so as women, right, where we are here to help our husband manifest, right? We're here to help him to reach all the things that the creator has laid before him in terms of what he deserves and what he has the right to. There's no limit to that. It's infinite to what he deserves. And so when we see that, right, like that we love this man that we are with, and we know that he deserves infinite. We know that whatever the car of his dream is, whatever the house of his dream is, whatever his dream is, right? he deserves it, right? Because of his connection to the source. And by him being connected to the source, that means there was a certain discipline and disobedient obedience. Sorry, there was a certain discipline and obedience in terms of him getting to that level of consciousness, right? Where he's not just a form, but what he holds inside is reflective of the creator, right? And is constantly creating. Because I said this in a video before, anything that is not creating is destroying. So we want our husband to be in that state. Now we have to be just very mindful, right, of what we are submitting ourselves to, because submission and obedience is a beautiful thing, but it's also a powerful thing. So I could think back to a situation where I was obedient, right, and willing to be obedient and submissive to a man who who did not tap into his knowledge of self yet, right? Which is his however he gets there, that's his journey. That's his story to tell. That's his story to dictate, right? That's between him and the creator of how he gets to that point. So I realized I used to get into relationships with men who were just a form, right? They had the physical, they had the swag, right? But it was just form because for whatever reason, they were still operating from this dust form, right? Of like confusion because of things they had went through. And so I found myself being so whether or not you want to admit it, the minute that you say you're going into a relationship with this person, you're submitting to whatever their foundation is. So if their foundation is they hit the block every day, when you said yes to that foundation, right? You're simultaneously saying yes to him hitting the block, because it could be a different conversation where, nah, I'm not really cool with you hitting the block or whatever. And so if I submit to that, that's saying I condone that. And so some men are like, oh, she thinks she's better than someone, it's not about thinking you're better than someone. It's about saying what resonates with you. And so the guy was going back to saying, if let's just say it like this, right? If a woman desires to get out the hood, right? That's her goal, is to get out the hood. Maybe not physically, but mentally, to abandon the thought process of whatever people want to call them, the oppressors. I don't really like that name because it gives them too much power. But the people who are trying to do things, evil things in high and low places, let's just say that, right? And you want to abandon what they've taught to you about your people, about yourself, and really get out of that mental prison. And you have a husband who is still very much connected to some of those thought processes because it was survival, or he feels like it's what makes him a man, or without it he wouldn't know who he is, right? So when that man asks you to be in a relationship and you say you fall in love with his potential, right? His potential to grasp this information, which may not happen. What you're saying is, despite our differences, I submit, right? And so the minute you submit, there's no responsibility on his part to have to grow into that, right? He doesn't have to be, that doesn't have to become part of the practice or the foundation for your family, because you knew what it was when you said yes. Whether it's a relationship or whether it's a marriage, whether it's sex, whatever, you knew what it was when you said yes. And a lot of times we fall in love with the potential of that person to grasp that information, because in your head you're thinking, oh, they want to be as mentally liberated as me, right? They want to be as close to the creator to me. And sometimes the trauma, the life experiences, they're so deep and muddied and ingrained in the brain that he may not be there yet. That's why the reference in the Bible where it talks about how Adam was created, it was a direct connection with God. That's what we mean when we say that's his journey. However he gets there, even if it's not with you, you may love this man down to his toenails, right? To the top of his hair. And if he's bald, to the top of his skin, right? But at the same time, that's his journey to walk. That's his journey to take at whatever pace that he wants. And all you could do is, if you really love him unconditionally, allow him to take that time to have that walk on his own time. Because one, you may not be at the place where you can endure all that comes with it. And so part of being submissive is feeling safe in your relationship. So as a woman, right, if a man is still in the dust and he's in the muck, in the mire, in the mud of trying to figure himself out, well, what makes you think you wouldn't get dirty when you submit to him? What makes you think that you wouldn't fall into his mud pit, or his muck and mire because you've signed on to be his wife or his woman or his lady, whatever the case may be? You may fall into that too, because whether we want to admit it or not, there are certain lanes that the Creator has made for us as man and as woman, right? Even though I still feel a way about labels, but there's a certain lane that has been made for us. And so if we're willing to be submissive to our husbands as the head of the household, as the king, and we're the queen, right? There has to be a certain level of submission, and that's emotionally, mentally, physically. There has to be. Otherwise, even when people would say, oh, like, you could run the house equally. That's true. It is about there being a balance. However, that balance is allowing him, if that's the argument we want to take, right? The point we want to take, there's a balance in a man being able to do his lane and you do what's in your lane. And part of that is him coming already, he's got through the muck and mire already, right? He's already tapped into his consciousness. He's already tapped into his knowledge of self, right? Because say for example, I'm a woman who's been through a lot of trauma, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain in relationships, and as you know, on my healing journey, I'm still recovering from that and seeking to be in a relationship with a man who is protective of that and who's mindful of that, right? So therefore, my emotions, the emotional part of me is and the spiritual part of me is protected because he's mindful of that. And therefore, I'm willing to be submissive. I'm willing to be submissive with my most vulnerable thoughts, because if he's moving in a way that's considerate of me emotionally, physically, spiritually, then I'll have no problem being submissive. Now, however, if I'm on my healing journey, right, and let's go back to this whatever people, for me personally, I still believe in traditions, right? The man is the head of the household. That's just for me. But let's just say for some people who are talking about balance, right? I'll just keep it for lack of better terms. Let's just talk about the balance, right? So if my husband is out here moving some way that's irresponsible in terms of my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts, or how his behaviors could impact mine, now I start to feel unsafe emotionally, right, and spiritually, because the person who I've shared this equilibrium with, he's tipping the scale. He's doing something that could cause me to go up emotionally, down emotionally. It's impacting me, right? So therefore, at that point, I have the option to get off this emotional roller coaster so that he can have the space to flourish however he wants and go on his journey however he wants. And the guy said something beautiful where he was like, the dating phase is to gain data. And I thought that was so powerful. So when you're gaining data before you do say yes to this relationship, you have to look at how he's moving, right? And is how he's moving protective of you mentally, spiritually, and physically, right? Is he a man of substance? Is he a man of principle? Is he a man of direction? Is he a man with a vision? Is he a man who has tapped into his connection and his relationship with the Creator? What are the things that have given him, now he's out of form and now he's in substance? So when you ask, like, Who were you when you were informed? What was that process when you became not aware of self? When you tapped into the point that there was a higher power who was willing and able to guide you? Whether you believe in God, whether you believe in God body, whether you believe in Jesus, right? Whatever you believe in, what was that point for you where you realized you were doing all this reckless stuff, or you were just navigating, right? And what was that point for you that you realized, hold on, if I just chill, there's a power that's willing to guide me? What was that point for you, right? You should be able to have these conversations with your husband, because these are indicators that he has come from that muck and mire. He's now navigating with a purpose. And so if you're here, right, or here, let's just say that, and you're building up each other, right? Now say you get to a point where you're building, and he stays here and you're willing to go here, right? We've seen how that works on a seesaw, right? If he's just like, nah, I ain't moving, and you trying to go up, you're trying to keep this balance going, it won't work for either of you. It won't, because you'll start to resent him because he's not moving higher, right? And this is if you've met him when he was just informed, because he never told you that he had to get to that point. When you signed on and said, yes, I'm your lady, there's no agreement. Whether he says like, yeah, this is my vision for my family, nothing says that he has to go through it and actually do it, right? So at that point, you have the decision to leave, right? Or you have the decision to go through the muck and mire with him. And I know for me, for personal experience, it never worked out for me in terms of, okay, I'ma just be here while I figure out where he's going, right? Like, while I let him figure out how his journey is going to be, because I realized that when I wanted to go here, I would start, you know what? I'm learning more things. You know what? Let me not learn anything new because he's still right here. I love to read. I might stop reading because I'm like, he's here. He's not telling. What's the point of me having this information if, the person who I'm in a relationship with is not willing to elevate himself? Because then it's like, I could just keep going here, right? And then that could take years, 2 years, whatever the case may be, and now we beefing or we divorced because I elevated so far above, right, or outside of the parameters of the initial relationship that we just know we've outgrown each other. And I've seen myself do that too in a lot of relationships. And so the thing that's so beautiful is that when we feel comfortable submitting, it's endless. It's endless possibilities, because we're saying, and what I'm saying is, those men who are still on their journey, there's most definitely women who are willing to submit to them while they figure it out. You hear about those stories of people who are like, yeah, we met when we were this age and we this, and they thugged it out, or whatever the case may be. Is you have to know you. That's why it's important for you to know you, so that if, say for example, you meet a man who's exercise is important to him sometimes, or eating healthy is important to him one day out the week, and he find him a wife who eating healthy one day out the week is good for her. Then they mesh up and, they do their thing. Cool. You have to know you. That's just all that is. To avoid heartbreak and breaking someone else's heart, you just have to know you. So when I was hearing him talk about that, right, and I was thinking about the Bible, right, and I remember, like, when it was talking about the apple, when Eve bit the apple, Satan came and this and that and the third, right? And so one thought that I wanted to give was, when God gave that command, right? Adam was well aware of what it meant and why. And so I admire men that out here grinding for their family. They're doing this, they're doing that, right? There's a part to that sometimes we miss in terms of men coming back and also being educators, right? So when we say protecting and providing, It's not just about working, right? It's equipping your family with the tools for survival. It's equipping your family with mental weapons to protect themselves if they ever got into a compromising situation, right? We didn't necessarily hear Adam break things down to Eve, right? Because as women, and I'm not making no excuses for Eve, right? I'm not making no excuses, but as women, right? When we become submissive, we want to give you the world. Like, if you say you want to become the owner of all the buildings in the city, we're like, like, we want you to get that because we admire you so much. We love, like, the footsteps that you've taken. We admire those footsteps physically and emotionally and spiritually, right? We want you to have abundance. We want whatever you've manifested to come true. Whatever thoughts you've had in your head about the things you want to achieve, we want them to come true. So when the serpent, right, came to Eve and was like, you'll have, not only this, you'll have that too. Eve was probably like, I'm gonna get this for my dude. She was probably psyched. Like, yep, I'm about to get this for us. It's going, now we're gonna be straight. We're gonna have this, that, right? Because she wasn't properly educated. She didn't know, and that's where men come in terms of balance, because our heads start going like, all right, how I'm gonna get this for him? How I'm gonna get this for him, for us? My dude want this. Like, I know I've been in situations where if my dude say that he want to own a star, I'm on websites like, all right, where's that? He gonna own a star. It says, I'm doing it. So that's just our natural interest in submitting to you. And part of submitting to you is like, I love this dude. I love how he look. I love how he move. I love how he walk. And so whatever he want, I love how he protects, like how he protects me, and by protecting himself, right? It's not just all he's done for me. It's how I watch him protect himself, how I've seen him turn down certain situations or opportunities because it didn't align with his foundation. I've seen it. And so because he protects himself like that, I want that man, because I want him to get down with for me like that. So when Eve, like, I don't think she was being malicious. Like, we've met, like, I've been that female. If my dude was like, yeah, I want the Jordan packages. And I was in high school. I'm saving my little money, my lunch money my parents are giving me. I'm saving it, packing my own lunch on the side so I could save my lunch money so I can get him these Jordan packages. All a whole time not realizing I'm doing him a disservice if every time I do that, because then he won't be a go-getter, right? He won't figure it out for himself. And that's part of him continuing to elevate, and me knowing the difference between hindering and helping to manifest, and supporting with the vision unfolding. So now if I do everything all the time, what is my husband learning? Now, if my husband comes to me and says, I've been thinking about owning a star, and I want you to go on this website to get it, but don't go on that website, because that website, they're part of an organization that supports negative things in our community. Okay, babe, no problem. I'm looking it up. I come to him, babe, what you think about this, right? Because then he's protecting our spiritual energy, because he don't want us pouring into anything that has negativity associated with it. So he's like, it's a beautiful thing to submit. And to know that you could trust him even if you slipping, right? Eve was slipping. She was slipping. And Eve was slipping. She was slipping. And that's what happened. She was slipping because there was a lack of evidence, right? That her man was protecting her and providing for her the holistically, right? Educating her. About, yes, God said this, but let me break it down to you. Because I know we've been hard-headed, and people could deny it, whatever. I know I've been hard-headed where people be like, yeah, don't do da 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 da, and we still got that little, innocence in us when we like, but if we do, what would happen? What could go wrong, right? And I can say this is an incident where I do it all the time. My gas be low, and I be like, but I've heard that, it could go a couple of more miles, right? And so just every day we take those risks, right? And so I'm not talking about anything that happened after because of what Eve did. But in situations like that, like say, for example, going back to my husband saying he wants a star but don't go through this organization or that. So inevitably he's protecting us because say down the line that investment in that star with that specific company, we end up being a part of a lawsuit because we own that star, or they were doing some negative things or corruption or something, and we end up being impacted by it. We take that hit too. And so same thing with Eve. There ended up being generational consequences for her behaviors. But again, it started at the foundation. It was so hard to retract after that because the door had been open. And so when you think about, for example, as a woman, if eating healthy is really important to you and you have a husband who Monday he like McDonald's, Tuesday he like Taco Bell, Wednesday he like Chick-fil-A, Thursday he like Wendy's, Thursday he like Wendy's, Friday he like pizza, Saturday he'll eat a salad or two, Sunday, right, no exercise, right? Then you all have children together, right? Then you all are trying to create financial stability. So not only is he using all the resources to keep buying takeout and y'all not able to save, what happens when y'all have children? You're trying to educate your child about the importance of eating healthy, right? What food does to the brain, which inevitably, if you have a son, right, will contribute to how he develops those motor skills related to boys. Or if you have a girl, it will contribute to those motor skills or developmental milestones that needed for children, like for girls, right? So these are things that you have to consider when you're in that data dating phase. Are these things that you could live with, right? And sometimes I know I've been guilty of it, and I'm just like, yeah, I could, he could do him, and I could do. But to love someone unconditionally means you accept them as they are, right? And if you have someone who you're not quite comfortable being submissive to, one, consider why. Two, make the decision if that's somewhere you're going to stay. And if you're going to stay, you have to be quiet. You could plant the seeds, right? You could keep doing you, right? Don't fall into their trap, right? Your finances are separate. So if he wants to eat whatever he want to eat and it ain't impacting you, fine. If he's willing to respect your boundaries in terms of what you're teaching your children about eating healthy for long-term benefits, for their cognitive development, for their milestones, for their brain development, he's willing to respect it, cool. There's not going to be a back and forth when you say no to the McDonald's and Wendy's 4 times a week. There's not going to be no back and forth. He just say, listen to your mama, right? Those are things that you have to be. Sorry. Those are things that you have to be willing to go back and forth. So if you're not willing to settle for those things, so if those things are not things that you're willing to compromise on and you feel like you'll end up resenting him, remember that before you say yes. Because the moment you say yes, that means that everything that he has or that he has going on, you're willing to submit to it, right? And join into it, into union with it, and condone. So those are the things that I just want us to be so mindful of in terms of when we're thinking about submission, and we're thinking about obedience, and we're thinking about how beautiful a thing it could be when you submit, right? When a man submits into you and it creates a child, right? When a man and a woman submit together and their ideas bring generational wealth. You've seen so many times where couples come in together and they create businesses, and they flourish. And part of that is individually you all have reached a certain consciousness or level of self, and therefore when you come together, it's so magnificent. So I just wanted to share that word real quick. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. And continue to have all the blessings and abundance of wealth too.